What was your first experience with harness racing as an owner?
As an owner, when I was first starting, I think I was 16, and I got an opportunity to buy this little mare. She's just very small, very, very small horse, and probably didn't look like she'd ever race. And I trained her down myself, and I got her to the races, and I drove her myself and won my first race with her. And we did all our firsts together. She was just probably one of my favorite horses.
I owned a horse when I was quite young. I think I was 17, and it was just a cheap claimer, but I'll never forget him. And he actually got me my first drives, so it was kind of neat to own and drive and train.
I owned an old horse that was 12 years old, no good. I knew he was no good. I didn't care. I used to jog him. I've been a blacksmith for years. I've learned to shoe on him before I went to a shoeing school, and I won a matinee race with him when I was 14 years old as an owner, trainer, and driver, and won my first cooler when I was 14, and I was hooked.
As an owner, my first experience was when I got my first win with my horse, and that was when I was 12 years old. And that's the horse that's standing behind me right now. He's 11, and we've owned him since he was 4. So it's been a good ride, and he's kind of our pet now.
As an owner, I got an old chestnut that nobody wanted with 2 tendon bows, and I drove him after school every day, and first race he did, he won a race at Solvalla, Stockholm, Sweden, so that was big for me.
It's probably 20 years ago now. We just bought a cheap horse, a buddy and myself, and we had a lot of success with the horse. He gave me my first driving win and my buddy his first driving win, and after that we were kind of hooked.
That goes way back to when I was a youngster. My dad and I owned a horse called Count Dan that raced at Flamborough, and we claimed him, and his very first start he won. So that was my introduction to harness racing.
I owned a trotting mare with Tony, and she actually won 3 in a row for us, so that was a good introduction, I would say.
If I can remember correctly, I was probably about 14, 15. I owned a little pacing mare. Gosh, what was her name? Turbo something. Anyway, I remember her winning. It was a chestnut mare, and I remember her winning. I think it was Turbo Lover, I think her name was. That was her name, yeah. And I remember her first win. That was exciting as an owner.
Well, it was probably about 17 years old, and I owned a cheap claimer, and he won. So that's about my first experience. It was pretty exciting.
I won a race with a horse called Tribal Destroyer, and the next week, the director of racing for the ORC, Mike Wilson, claimed him off me.
I bought a horse for $500 in Prince Edward Island, and the next year he made like almost $4,000, which was a lot of money at that stage in the late 70s.
Well, I bought my first horse, I think I was 17, and 2000 claimer, like most people. They get a cheap one, and that was back in, 74, 73, I guess, but she did real well for us, and we ended up selling her for $8,000 or $10,000, so that was a pretty good experience for a first-time owner.
As an owner, I bought a cheap horse for like $1,000, and he ended up making me about $50,000, so it was a good deal.
Well, actually, Maple Sugar. She ended up putting no down payment on my house, so that was kind of nice. She was a nice, she wasn't a superstar, but she was a nice filly,
When I was a kid, my dad brought me a broodmare, and she had a foal, and that was the first racehorse. And she produced me, that got a horse for me that got me in the horse business. Yep, the horse that she had made me over $100,000, and that was a lot of money back then.
To be honest, it wasn't a real great one. We bought a 2-year-old filly, and it really didn't pan out, and we had high hopes at first for her, and things just didn't go the way we wanted.
I bought a horse with my brother from New Zealand. I had to save up, and it was a complete disaster.
It wasn't very nice. I bought a horse when I was a kid. Actually, I believe my mother probably bought me the horse, and it ended up getting killed. It got out of the field and got killed, and kind of sucked.
God, that was a long time ago. A buddy of mine and I bought just a cheap horse, and wasn't very good, but I kept trying. I had better horses over the years.
I bought my first horse when I think I was 15 or 16. I was a kid. I went to Elmira High School, and it was right across from the old Elmira Raceway. And I trained horses in the afternoon, went to school in the mornings. I organized all my spares and rearranged all my classes so I could do that, and that's what got me hooked and started. So whether that was a good thing or bad, I don't know, but we're still plugging away.
I think my dad sold me a piece of a horse named Karahi years ago, and he wasn't very good, but I thought he was the best thing since sliced bread, and it was long before I even started training. So I mean, it got me a lot more involved and a lot more excited about the game, and once it's in your blood, you just can't get rid of it.
As an owner, costly. Oh no, we bought a couple horses, and then just 4 of us went on the horse, just had a bit of fun with it, and it's been just a bunch of guys that own a horse, have a few beers after, talk about it, so this is a good experience.
When I was 16, my best friend and I, his mom and dad had horses, and we went out and bought a horse, I think for about $1,000, and just had fun up in the Owen Sound and Hanover area racing.
I had a nice horse I'd bought in Toronto from Christoforou called Monty's Chief. And I raced him in Montreal, and he was real good for us. I owned him with Matt Snaslin, who had played for the Canadians at the time, and we had a lot of fun with him.
Oh, wow, that goes way back, because I was raised in the business, so I think I was about 17 or 18 years old when my brother Doug and I had a filly together. And that was back first year of the Sire Stakes, I think. So it was, and that was enjoyable, and I've owned quite a few since then.
I've owned horses pretty much all my life with my father, right from the time I'm probably 8 years old, and they've all been good experiences, especially when you win.
Way back, and my dad bought a horse and let me in on a piece of the horse back in Maine, so I'd probably be 15 years old, something like that, so it was pretty cool.
Boy, Randy could probably tell you this more than me, because he remembers all that kind of stuff. But when we were kids, our dad got us a horse and raced at Orangeville, and Barry Drury used to drive it. And so that was probably our first, as far as owning goes, that was our first experience was there. And but as far as the name goes, I don't remember. But Randy probably would. He's pretty amazing at stuff like that.
Probably when I was 13 or 14, when I had got my license at home. I had my own horse that I got to do and train and drive the whole time, and my dad just kind of let me go at him and screw it up and do whatever I wanted to do and learn by myself. His name was Flight Star, so he wasn't a bad horse. He won a couple of races, but that was probably. But when it came to getting the money, it ended up being my dad's horse. So I suppose technically it wasn't mine.
My dad, he always kind of bought us a yearling every year at the sale, and he'd put me and my brother down and myself down as the owners. So I don't know if I can think of a horse in particular, but I just always remember Dad buying one at the sale every year and then just giving us part ownership in it. So I guess that was fun.
My grandfather introduced me as an owner. Him and I got a horse together, and it's been in the racing ever since.
My dad owned some when I was young, and he gave them to me. That was a long time ago, and it's pretty exciting, and you get a really good rush out of it. So that was from playing hockey to horses. I think there's a lot of similar things, and when your horses race, you get a good rush, and it's a good feeling.